All right, Shalom Israel. Hold on one second. Let me just sort out this microphone and the laptop. Which way to hold it? That can go there. All right, Shalom Israel. This is the Wednesday Locust. Also, remember to check out Commanding General Yohanna's radio show, which is 2 a.m. UK time. We also have classes here Monday through Friday. We have them in the physical building at 394 Lodge Road, B18 5PW. We have those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. till 9. We have the Lashon Kodash on Friday. That's online, 7 p.m. till 9. We have the radio show on the ends Friday evening, 9 p.m. until 11. Saturday, we have Sabbath service at 10 a.m. Lord the Life, the Weathers Tawab, London camp, Birmingham camp. It rotates. So just contact the school number to find out, obviously, which one it is at whatever time. And also, any questions, just type them in the chat and we'll get to them. So any scriptures you don't understand, anything you want broken down, just type them in the chat and Lord Allah, I'll do my best to answer them for you. All right, with that, we're going to go into quite a few things today. There's quite a few things we're going to go into. Hold on, let me start in the book of Numbers. So in the book of Numbers, chapter 5 and verse 12. Numbers chapter 5 and verse 12 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, if any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him." So it says, if any man's wife goes aside and she commits a trespass against him, meaning she goes aside and she does something she's not supposed to do, primarily whoring on her husband, committing adultery on her husband. If she goes aside and does those things, and a man lie with her carnally, meaning sexually, another man lies with her, and a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, meaning she's what? Cheating on her husband, man. She's going behind his back and having sex with somebody else. She's having sex with somebody else and all of those kind of things. She's doing all of those kind of things, and it be hid from her husband, because that's what people do. If a woman sleeps around, she hides from her husband. Hey, Ariella, for what? Just let me know. If a brother don't come on in time, when you're home, just let me know for what. So now it says, if it be hid from him, meaning she's cheating on her husband, man, and she's hiding it. She's secret messages, putting different passwords on her phone, hiding her phone from him. That's what they're doing today's time. Obviously, back then they didn't have phones. So she's doing stuff with another man, and it's hid from his eyes. So let's read on. "And a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close," meaning it's a secret, man. She's kept it a secret, "and she be defiled, and she's defiled when she opens her legs to another man. Because once you have a husband, that's the only man who's supposed to touch you. That's the only man who's supposed to touch you for the rest of your life. Now, if somebody else touches you, you're defiled, which is filthy, dirty, all of those kind of things. Now, the internet nowadays pushes it on our sisters that being defiled is the way forward. They push it on them that, you know what, if your man treats you bad, find another one. Your man doesn't do this right, find another one. And they're teaching you how to become defiled. Now, defiled is another word for filthy or disgusting, man. That's what this world pushes our daughters and our sisters to become, to have a man and cheat on him with somebody else. It says, and a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the manner. So now there's no witness against her, meaning she ain't been caught cheating, she ain't been caught going out and having affairs, and there's no witness against her. So if there's no witness, there's no proof. In the Bible, you need 2 or 3 witnesses. So, okay, hold on. Let me let Hakeem in. Hey, Shalom, Lord in Christ.
Shalom, Lord in Christ, sir.
So, okay, let me just put the speaker on. Hey, Shalom, Lord in Christ.
Shalom, sir, Lord in Christ, sir.
If I could, can you get me Numbers chapter 5 and verse, where was I? 12.
Come on, sir.
Ira said, how we know the Chinese are Amen from the Bible? Because with the Chinese and Japanese, they're inbred. And when I believe, hold on, let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. I can't find it, but what you have is the Ammon and Moab and Ammon and them. They was like the Mongol Empire. And what does Mongol mean? Mongol was a term for like Down syndrome or whatnot, and that's what Chinese people have because of what Lot having sex with his daughters. The look of those people is what Lot produced from having sex with his daughters. And you look at the Chinese and Japanese, they look a certain way for that reason. And they had a whole empire called the Mongol Empire. And they fit that description, so lucky. And based on where they dwelt and so forth. So that's how you know that's Ammon and Moab. And that's why you have 2 brothers that look alike. I mean, how else? How could it be any? Imagine this. Lot's daughter had what? Lot's daughter had Lot had Moab and Ammon. And when you look at the Chinese and Japanese, they look exactly the same, man. They both look like they got them traits. Because they're from what? The Mongolian Empire, and Mongol meant meant like Down syndrome or whatever. And they look like that. Why? Because obviously Lot had sex with his daughters and where they dwelt. And they became the Mongolian Empire. I think they used to call them the Mongoloids or whatever, Mongolia, and all of those kind of things. That's how they. Yeah. And then when you call someone a Mongol today, when you call someone a Mongol today, it's a disrespectful, offensive term. And they had a whole empire called the Mongolian Empire. So like, hold on, Ira, let me pull up the Mongolian Empire for you, so you know I'm not lying. Mongol Empire. Hold on. Hold on. Is that on the screen, Hakeem?
But also,
It's not on the screen. Oh, no, sir.
so lucky.
All right, so here is it on the screen now.
Carlton.
It says Mongol Empire of the 13th and 14th centuries was the largest contiguous land empire in history, originating in present-day Mongolia in East Asia. The Mongol Empire at its height stretched from the Sea of Japan to parts of Eastern Europe. So yeah, that's the Mongolian Empire. So yeah, all of these places. Hold on, let me go. So that's the this is most of the Mongolian Empire when it was at its height. So okay, so that's who they are. So lucky, where was we in the book of Numbers? Hold on, let me go back to my notes. The book of Numbers, chapter 5, and I believe it was verse 13. I think you might be on mute, Hakayan.
Salakia, sir. Yeah, I think you said 12, sir.
So I can say that again.
I think you said 12, but if you want 13, no, sir. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Khan. Numbers 5, verse 12. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, if any man's wife go aside and commit trespass against him.
So any man's wife go aside and she commits a trespass against him. Go ahead.
Khan. A man lie with her carnally.
A man lies with her carnally, meaning a man has sexual relations with her. Another man lies with her sexually. That's what it means. It says lie with her carnally. Go ahead.
Khan. And it be hid from the eyes of her husband.
So this is a woman that's cheating because it's hid from the eyes of her husband. So now her husband ain't aware of it because it's hidden from him. She's having an affair behind his back, basically. That's what you call it today. She's having an affair behind his back. So lucky, go ahead.
Khan. And be kept close. And she defiled. Salakia. Be kept close. Salakia, hold on. Salakia. Be hid from the eyes of her husband. And be kept close.
Go ahead.
And she be defiled. And there be no witnesses against her.
And there's no witnesses against her. Go ahead.
Neither she be taken with the manner.
Go ahead.
And the spirit of jealousy come upon him.
And the spirit of jealousy come upon him. Now, sometimes when a man thinks something, he might be wrong. Sometimes he might be right. Like you know your woman. So if your woman ain't doing what she used to do, if your woman ain't giving you the attention like she used to do, the spirit of jealousy is going to come over you. You're going to be like, damn, is there somebody else in the picture? Listen, if your woman is dressing up sexy for Instagram, the spirit of jealousy is going to come over you, man. Imagine this for you. You get the bonnet and no makeup for you. But then Instagram gets what? Everything else, man. Instagram gets everything that you don't get. Now, who is she doing this for? Because it ain't for you, because you get the bonnet. So if she ain't trying to look good for you, but she wants to look good when you're not around, the spirit of jealousy is going to come upon her, man, and be like, damn, maybe she's dealing with somebody at work. You do know at work there's this thing that called a work husband and a work wife that people have at work. Just think, at work, your spends more time with a colleague at work than she does with you because she's at work for all them hours, man. There's enough time for, if you've got a simple woman, there's enough time for him to make her laugh. There's enough time for him to touch her and tell her stories and them just to get to know each other. There's enough time for that, man. And if you've got a simple woman, she's going to give what belongs to you to somebody else in the workplace, man. She's going to give what belongs to you away. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Karawan Khan. And be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witnesses against her, neither she be taken with the manner.
And there's no witnesses to say, yo, she's committing adultery, she's cheating, she's having an affair. There's no witnesses. Go ahead.
Karawan Khan. And the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. So
he's jealous because she's defiled. He's got an inkling. There's another man in the picture. He's got an inkling. She's dealing with somebody else. Go ahead.
Khan. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled.
Sometimes it could just be all in your mind. Sometimes you could just be paranoid. Sometimes your wife could be loyal and faithful, and you've just got the spirit of jealousy. Now, there's a way to handle it, because why? if you think your woman's cheating on you today, most men want to kill that woman, man. You want to create arguments and fights and do all of those kind of things. There's a way to deal with it. If you feel like that, you ain't supposed to kill your woman, man. You ain't supposed to harm your woman. If you feel like that, you're supposed to go before the priest of the Lord. Slacky, go ahead.
Kadawan Khan. And he shall bring her offering for her. Salakia, did I read that bit?
Now go to verse 15. I think
15, Salakia. Then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest.
So now nowadays you would take her to council. You take her to council. The generals would ask, like, they would ask you, well, why do you feel like this? And then you'll be like, well, 2 a.m. she wasn't answering her phone. The other day she said she was going out, but she put on these heels and this outfit. And when she came back, her hair was all messed. You'd present your side as to why you feel a certain way. As to why you feel a certain way. Like you won't just, certain things won't just happen out of thin air. You're gonna see something and it's not gonna sit well with you, within you, man. You're gonna be like, something ain't adding up, man. Her phone was ringing today. She turned the phone like this. She's all of those kind of things. I don't know the passwords, none of that. Something ain't gonna sit right with you. And you're gonna be like, something ain't right. So before you get all mad at her, what are you supposed to do? You take it to the priest. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan. And he shall bring her offerings for her. The 10th part of an ephah of barley meal. He shall put no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is the offering of jealousy.
So now those different things you'd have to do regarding different offerings. This would be the offering that you would do for the offering of jealousy. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan. An offering of memorial, bringing iniquity to remembrance.
To bring iniquity to remembrance, meaning this woman might have done this years ago and think she's got away with it. And now this offering is going to bring iniquity to remembrance. She might have thought, you know what? I cheated on him early into our relationship. That don't count, man. Once you're with this man, I don't care if you cheated 100 years ago, man. You still cheated, man. If you cheated 50 years ago, you still cheated, man. There's no way around it. Bringing iniquity to remembrance. You're probably thinking, oh, well, I cheated because he treated me bad. And now he might treat you good, but you still cheated. And now he's got the spirit of jealousy, and iniquity is being brought to remembrance. Meaning the stuff that you done early in the relationship, when you thought, you know what, I'm testing the waters. Now iniquity is being brought to remembrance. You thinking, you know what, we're just dating, so I'm going to see other people, but you didn't tell him you're seeing other people. Iniquity is being brought to remembrance. I've heard this one that, oh, I'm dating, so my options are open. If every man wasn't so simple, this is what you would say. Your options are open. Well, I'm going to step back and refuse to be one of them options, man.
That's right.
All those 10 men should say, okay, I'm going to step back and refuse to be an option. This woman would have to be by herself, man. Don't give her all this power that she can pick and choose. Imagine this. Your future is in her hands, whether she picks you or the other man. Imagine that. I'm dating, which means what? She's running a competition between you and a few other men. She feels like she's the prize, and you're the competitor competing for the prize. How about you say to her, I ain't competing. You go be with somebody else, because I'm not going to be with a woman that's telling me she's dating other men to see which one's best suitable for her. It's me and me only, man.
That's right. If
there's others that you have to that you believe you can run a competition and you're the prize, you go. I suggest you go be with one of them men.
That's right.
I ain't chasing you and gonna compete for your love. Imagine that. You're gonna compete, and if she does choose you, guess what happens? As soon as you don't do what them other men are willing to do, she's gonna go with one of them, and then you're gonna be that man with the spirit of jealousy 3 years down the line. And sin's going to be brought to remembrance that she had sex with one of them other men that you was competing against. That she had sex with one of them other men you was competing against before she got with you. She only got with you because you was the only silly man that would actually stay with her. Whereas the other men in the world, they understood this woman ain't worth staying with. A woman like that, avoid, man. Even men in the world, in their simpleness, they know certain women they're not willing to stay with, man. Listen, man, don't let no woman run all over you. So lucky read on.
And the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord.
And now they'll bring her near and set her before the Lord. Go ahead.
So lucky, sir. When they say set before the Lord, what do they mean by that?
Meaning they bring her before the priest, and the priest do what? They work for the Lord.
Right.
So once she's before the priest, it's like she's before the Lord. Because they're the spokesman of the Lord. So same way when it says bring your sacrifices to the Lord, it just means bring it to the priest.
Is it the same with council as well?
So I can say that again.
Is it the same with council, like here now of today?
Yes. So men of the Lord is what? When you come before men of the Lord, you're basically coming before God because they're the spokesman of God. So they're not speaking to you on behalf of their own mind or their own business. They're speaking to you on behalf of what the Lord says. So that's why. So that's what that's talking about. So let's go ahead.
And the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel.
So they'll take an earthen vessel. Go ahead.
And of the dust that is in the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it into the water.
So they would sweep up the dust of the temple. They'll sweep the dust off the floor in the temple, and they'll put that in the water. So they would put that in the water. So Lucky, go ahead.
So Lucky, so if I may.
Go ahead.
Where did they get that from, though?
Get what from?
Sweeping dust off the floor and putting it in water.
Because this was their way of, if you drink that water with the dust in, this was their way. This was like a curse. So now, if you was an adulterer, then your belly would swell, your thighs would rot. If you wasn't, you would drink that and nothing would happen to you. You would go home and conceive. So this right here was like your lie detector test back then. So back then, this would be like your lie detector test. If you're lying, your belly's going to swell. Your thighs are going to rot. Everybody's going to know you're a whore. Now, if you're telling the truth, you go free, and that water and that dust does nothing to you.
So that's the direct hand of the Most High then? Yes.
So if you're remember, you can lie to men, but but the Lord put this in place that this potion right here, what they're going to drink, if you're a liar, it's going to affect you. If you're not a liar, you'll be fine. And obviously, you can't lie to the Lord. Why? Because the Lord sees everything. Yeah. So this woman would come before the priest, and then this man would know his wife's a whore. The priest would know his wife's a whore if she got the curse. So, okay, go ahead.
Counsel. And the priest shall set the woman before the Lord and uncover the woman's head.
And would uncover the woman's head, which lets you know that obviously our sisters have always been covering their head. Because it says he shall uncover her head. So okay, go ahead.
And put the offering of memorial in her hands.
Put the offering of memorial in her hands. So now she would take this cup with the dust and the water in. Go ahead.
Which is the jealousy offering.
This is the jealousy offering. Go ahead.
And the priest shall have in his hands the bitter water that.
And you'll have the bitter water. Go ahead.
That causeth the curse.
That does what?
Causeth the curse.
Which causes the curse. So now, this bitter water causes the curse. And that's what it was. That's why they put the dust in the water, because it causes a curse. Go ahead.
Verse 20.
This would be, listen, this was your lie detector in the Bible before they had a lie detector test, man. You go on the Maury show and Jerry Mikhail, and you find out your wife's a whore that way. The Lord would have you find out your wife's a whore this way. They go on the Jeremy Carr show to see if their wife's cheated. Why? Because they don't have no proof of it. What they have nowadays on the Maury show is what? The spirit of jealousy. So they take their wife for a polygraph test. Back then, you would take your wife before the priest.
Right.
They would let you know what your wife is. So, okay, go ahead.
You can't. But if thou hast gone aside to another instead of thy husband, And if thou be
And now,
defiled,
if you've gone aside to somebody else other than your husband, Salaki, go ahead.
and some man have lain with thee besides thine husband, then the priest shall charge the woman with an oath of cursing.
They shall charge her with what?
An oath of cursing.
They would charge her with it. Salaki, what verse you at?
Verse 21.
So they would charge her with an oath of cursing. And the curse is what? That punishment that she's about to receive. Go ahead. The rottenness and all of those things. Go ahead.
And the priest shall say unto the woman, the Lord make thee a curse and an oath among thy people, when the Lord doth make thy thigh to rot and thy belly to swell.
And now this is the curse: your thighs rot and your belly swell. Your thighs rot and your belly and your belly swells. So now, what? Now that they've found that she's an adulterer, actually hold that, but give me Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 10.
Leviticus 20 verse 10. Leviticus 20 verse 10. You ready, sir?
Yeah, come on, go ahead.
And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death.
So now, what does that mean, Hakian?
That means both of you are going to get killed if you both commit the sin of adultery. You're both getting killed.
So now, in the book of Numbers, why didn't now when the priest realized that this woman hold on her husband, why didn't they put her to death? If in the law it says adulterers are supposed to die, why didn't they just stone her to death right then instead of just putting this curse on her?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't know.
All right, someone in the comments, let me know. If read what you're holding again. So now the punishment of adultery is what? The death penalty. Now, why didn't the priest put this lady to death in the book of Numbers? So I can read it again, Hakian.
Leviticus
So
20 verse 10. And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death.
So now it says an adulteress supposed to be put to death. And this woman is an adulterer, lied with a man. There you go. Give Trooper Yako my hand. Give him a hand. It said there needs to be 2 or more witnesses. That's the point, man. So that's why they didn't put her to death. But what they did do, they made her a public embarrassment, whereas everyone would see this woman and know she hold on her husband. Now let's get the precept for what Trooper Yako I'm saying. Get me the book of Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 6. Yeah, witnesses
17.
So now if you don't see it, if you don't see it, you can't put somebody to death, even though you might be right, even though they knew this woman was a whore, because her thighs rotted, because no one witnessed it, they couldn't put her to death. So what did she have to do? She had to live with the guilt. What do some people have to live with today? AIDS and HIV, man. They have to be a public embarrassment, man, for the world to see. So like Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 6.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 17 verse 6. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death.
So now 2 or 3 witnesses, then a man can be put to death. A man can't be put to death just based off 1 witness. Has to be 2 or 3. So like you go ahead.
Can't. But at the mouth of 1 or 2, he shall not be put to death.
But at the mouth of 1 witness, he shall not be put to death. So one man can't come and say, I seen him do that. The man can't be put to death for that. Why? Because maybe you just don't like this man. So when 2 or 3 people have the same story that this man done something, that's when you can be put to death. That's why they're always trying to find multiple witnesses. It's crazy how today they be jailing people off of 1 witness, off of 1 eyewitness. They be jailing people off of one eyewitness, man. The Bible says 2 or 3 witnesses shall every matter be established, man. Let me get
Actually, Salaki, sir, if I may,
go ahead.
they actually they if it's on a camera or anything like that, they can't just use the camera alone either. They have to have somebody to corroborate what the camera is showing.
And that makes sense. Sometimes listen, with this artificial intelligence, someone can say that ain't me. Someone can say you manipulated that camera. And this whole land is set up based off our laws. Our laws is basically what this land is which is loosely run by. Let me get one more. Deuteronomy chapter 19 and verse 15.
Deuteronomy 19, verse 15. One witness shall not rise up against a man for any.
So it says one witness shall not rise up against a man. Go ahead.
Or for any sin.
Go ahead.
In any sin that he sinneth.
So if any sin that a man does, one man can't rise up against him. One man can't rise up against him. There needs to be what? 2 or 3 witnesses. Go ahead.
At the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses,
or at the mouth of 3 witnesses,
be established.
Shall the matter be established? One witness don't hold no weight. That's why that woman, she just had to, her thighs had to wrap. But so lucky, take me back to Numbers chapter 5, and we'll go back to where we left off at.
Carl. Verse 22. No, is it? Yeah, verse 22. And this water shall causeth the curse.
Paul said, Shalom, so only the woman would drink the herb. How would the man be tested for adultery in this case? Now that man, the Lord will deal with that man however he wants. In another way, who knows, the Lord might give him a heart attack. The Lord might kill him in some other way. But the thing is with that one, because that one's hidden, with that man, obviously that man's other wife ain't really going to question him on, have you been unfaithful? Because that's not her business. Whereas this woman here belongs to a man. This man doesn't belong to a woman, but he's still in the wrong. So both of them are supposed to die. This is why, if there's no witnesses, what this man needs to do, you stake out that house, man, and see who comes in and out, man. You and 2 of your friends sit there, 3 of your friends, see who's coming in and out. That's your witnesses. That man would die under that matter. But if there's no witnesses, then that man, the Lord will kill him some other way. So, okay, go ahead.
And this water that causeth the curse shall go into thy bowels to make.
And now the water that causes the curse, it goes into your bowels. Go ahead. To
make thy belly to swell.
And now it goes into your bowels. It makes your belly swell. It's like somewhat of a poison goes into your bowels, makes your belly swell. Go ahead.
And thy thigh to rot.
And then your body will start rotting. Go ahead.
Is that what it's like? When it says thigh, does it mean your body?
Well, your thighs will rot.
Okay, right.
Everybody will look at this woman and they can tell this woman's sick. They can tell, and they know why she's sick. Because if they know the scriptures, she will be the woman as, don't be unfaithful to your husband because this could be you. Don't be dating 10 men because this could be you. So, okay, go ahead.
Khan. And thy thigh to rot, and the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, and he shall not, Salakia, and he shall blot them out with the bitter water.
Go ahead.
Khan. And he shall cause the woman to drink bitter water that causeth the curse.
So the water is bitter and this causes the curse. Go ahead.
Khan. And the water that thou causeth the curse shall enter into her and become bitter.
And nowadays, obviously, how do you know if your woman's a whore nowadays? You take her to counsel and she won't come. That's how you know. You tell your woman, yo, we need a counsel, and she'll refuse to come to the counsel. How does someone know when they're usually wrong? They don't show up at the council. Because if you knew you was right, you'd be in the council on time.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
When someone knows they're not right, they don't come to the council. Imagine this. You're a sister and a man accuses you of being a whore. You're going to come to that council to clear your name. Now, if your woman don't come to the council, It's because you having that spirit of jealousy is correct. She's probably playing around with another man. So she don't want to clear her name. Why? Because she's thinking, how did he catch on? And the Lord will deal with her, man. Nowadays, anyway. So, okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan. And the priest shall take the jealousy offering out of the woman's hand, and shall wave the offering before the Lord, and offer it up upon the altar.
Actually, drop that. Give me for time. Give me John chapter 8 and verse 1.
Quran Khan. John 8 verse 1. Jesus went onto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, unto him, and he sat down and taught them.
So now, Christ went out there. The people came to him. Christ is breaking down the scriptures and all of those kind of things, man. Christ is giving them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken
And the
in
scribes and the
adultery.
Pharisees, they was meant to be the teachers of the law, the scribes and the Pharisees. But what they did, they hated the truth, man. Christ was coming with the truth, and they hated it. The scribes and the Pharisees is supposed to be the people that uphold the law and all of those kind of things. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act.
They said, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. So now, this woman was caught in adultery. I don't know how the sin, maybe the walk past looked through the window, seen her with another man. She was caught in the very act. So they took this woman to Christ to see what Christ is going to do. Go ahead. And those playing games with him. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned.
Now they want to quote the law that such should be stoned. This is what Christians do today.
That's right.
They quote the Bible, but then another part of it they don't want to follow. Imagine this. The Pharisees wanted this woman stoned because she was committing adultery. And what we're going to read later on is how the Pharisees bore false witness to get Christ killed, man. How the Pharisees was conspiring to kill Christ. How the Pharisees was conspired. They even conspired to kill Lazarus. How they conspired to kill Paul. These is meant to be the same law-abiding citizens that was teaching the law. The same men that was sitting there at the top, teachers of the law, coming to Christ about the law right here. These was the same people that was breaking the law. We're going to read that a bit later on, but Slaki, go ahead.
But what sayest thou?
And now they said, Moses said we should stone her. But what do you say? Because now they want to get Christ to go against Moses and so forth. That's what they're trying to do. So they say, Moses said stone her. What do you say? They wanted to get Christ to say something wrong so they can say this guy goes against Moses. So okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan. This they said, tempting him, that he might have to accuse him.
So now they said these things because they was trying to accuse him. They was trying to accuse him of not following the laws of God. So they wanted to say, Moses said, stone her. What do you say? And then they wanted to use his words so they can go to their chief priest and conspire how they could kill him and say, this man needs to be gone because he's against the laws of God. So like, go ahead.
Quran Khan. But they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not.
And he ignored them, man. He just continued what he was doing because he knew the games that was playing. Not everyone deserves an answer, man. Christ stooped down and just acted like he didn't hear them until they kept pressing him. Then he answered them and cut them, man. And this is what we do at camp. Not everyone gets an answer, man. Some people come up with foolishness. You're not going to get an answer, man. We ignore fools from time to time, man. And they came up to Christ tempting him, and he didn't even give them an answer, but they kept pressing him and gave them an answer after that. So, okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan. So when they continued asking,
meaning he left them speaking to themselves for a bit, man. He's doing his thing, writing in the mud, and they keep asking him, Master, so what should we do? Should we stone her? Because Moses said, should we stone her? He's not answering them. They keep going on and on and on and on and on. So it said they continued. Go ahead.
He lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her.
And Christ is keeping the law of Moses. So I said, he that's without sin, cast the first stone at her, man. So Christ is saying, listen, man, if you ain't breaking no laws, go ahead and throw that stone, man. Christ didn't say, no, don't stone her. Christ said, if he that's without sin, cast the first stone, man. Meaning he didn't give them the answer that they was looking for. They was looking for a different answer, and Christ cut them, man, using their own logic. Christ said, he that's without sin, cast the first stone, man. Go ahead.
Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
Would that be to say that, of today, like if a brother was with sin, he'd be a hypocrite to tell somebody else not to sin, right?
No. Because what they was doing here, they wasn't telling her not to sin. You telling them not to sin is what Christ did. Christ told them not to sin. What these people's going to do here was stone her to death. That's what they was going to do. So you would be a hypocrite if you stone someone to death.
If you was obviously with sin, right?
That's what the Bible says. The way you judge, you're going to be judged. So there's some people that want everybody to die for what they do wrong. Whereas if you want everyone to die for what they do wrong, you need to make sure you do nothing wrong. But you telling someone not to sin is you actually giving them mercy and telling them don't do that. It's the wrong thing to do. That's you not suffering sin upon them and you actually showing them mercy. Whereas here, they wasn't showing no mercy. They just wanted to stone her to death.
Right.
So they wanted Christ to give them the green light so they could stone her. Or if Christ didn't give them the green light to stone her, they wanted to stone him. Because they wanted to accuse him of something. They wanted to accuse him of not punishing people that break the laws. So they wanted to accuse him of all of those kind of things. So he didn't give them the answer that they was looking for. So like, go ahead.
Quran, verse 8. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one.
And now
the eldest.
They was convicted. You know why they was convicted? Because the Pharisees didn't keep the law, man. They was convicted. Convicted means what? Someone calls you out on your faults, man. They was called out on the things that they was doing, and they was convicted, and they all slid out the back door one by one, man. They didn't even all leave together. They came together with the woman, but once Christ dropped it on them heavy, they walked off one by one, all leaving in different directions. So, okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last.
Listen, man, the oldest one amongst them, down to the last, they all left out one by one. Go ahead.
And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst.
And everybody had gone, and this woman's there, and Christ is there. Go ahead.
When Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where art thou? Where are those? Salakia, where are those thine accusers?
It says, where are those thine accusers? Where's the people that accused you of this act? Where's the 2 or 3 witnesses that accused you of this? Where are they? Where's your accusers? Go ahead.
Quran Khan, have no man condemned thee?
Have no man condemned thee? Go ahead.
Quran Khan, she said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more.
And this is what we do when we tell people to stop breaking the laws of God. We tell them, go and sin no more. Whereas the Pharisees back then, they wanted to stone you for every little thing that you did, man. So just pay attention to that. Imagine in that we just read. They wanted to stone this woman. Now give me Acts chapter 23 and verse 1.
Acts 23 verse 1.
So they wanted to stone this woman. Now we're gonna get that the Pharisees didn't even keep the law. Go ahead.
Quran Khan, Acts 23 verse 1. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God unto this day.
So now Paul's letting them know, men and brethren, man, I've had a good conscience towards God. I've served the Lord. A good conscience towards God is when you keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. That's what a good conscience towards God is. You know when you're doing right by God. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth.
And Ananias was the high priest. And he said, smite Paul on the mouth. Why? Because they hated the fact that these men was teaching about Christ. They hated it. Why? Because they wanted to be the religious leaders. They wanted to be the rulers. They didn't want nobody coming with nothing new. They wanted you to do what? Stay serving the Romans. Whereas Christ didn't want you serving the Romans, man. These Pharisees, they had a league with the Romans. And they wanted you to serve them because they was directly under the Romans. They had a good relationship with the Romans. And when you're coming teaching the opposite, they hate that because they feel like they're going to lose their seat. And this is why Christians always say to us, why do you lot speak about Edomites like that? Why are you lot so rough? Why can't we all get along? The Pharisees wanted all that nonsense. Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan. Then said Paul unto him, God shall smite thee.
And now Paul said, the Lord's going to smite you for smiting me. Go ahead. Now the Pharisees wanted to keep the law. This part, go ahead.
Thou whited wall.
Go ahead.
For sittest thou to judge me after the law, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law.
So Paul's saying, you read that part one more time.
Then Paul said unto him, God shall smite thee, thou whited wall. For sittest thou to judge me after the law? And
so now they're trying to do, Paul's saying, you sit to judge me after the law, and then you're trying to do things to me which is contrary to the law. You're trying to keep the law in one breath and breaking it in the next.
Right.
And that's what these Pharisees was doing, man. And that's what they was doing in the time of Christ. Christians do it today. They want to keep the law in one breath. They want to break it in the next. Go ahead.
And commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law. And they that stood by said, revealest thou God's high priest.
So now they're quoting the law again. Because in the law it says what? Thou shouldn't revile the gods, meaning about the rulers, meaning you ain't supposed to speak evil about the rulers of your people, which means you shouldn't be speaking evil of Commanding General Yohanan, man.
Right.
That's what that's talking about in the law. You shouldn't be speaking evil about the rulers of your people, man. So go ahead.
Then Paul said, I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it is written.
I didn't know the high priest. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people.
So now Paul's quoting the same law that they quoted. Go ahead.
But when Paul perceived that one part was Sadducees and the other part Pharisees, he cried out in the council.
So now, one part of the crowd was the Pharisees, one part was the Sadducees. Now, what's the difference? Who are the Pharisees?
I can't remember, Salakia.
Who are the Sadducees?
Can't remember. So
now the Pharisees is what people think. People think the Pharisees is the Levites and the high priests, and it wasn't that. The Pharisees is what? The Pharisees was a group that emerged after the Maccabean revolt. So you look around between 170 and 160 BC. They formed a group after the Maccabean revolt, and they were called the Pharisees. Now, who are the Sadducees? The Sadducees is the ones who what? Dominated the temple. So now the Sadducees was the ones in the temple. What you would have is the Pharisees was more middle-class men. The Sadducees, they were more the upper class, the rich and the wealthy. And the Sadducees had a good relationship with the Romans, but they believed in different things. One believed in reincarnation, one didn't. One believed when you're dead, that was it. One believed you come back, one believed you didn't. So the Sadducees, I believe they believe when you're dead, you're dead. So the Sadducees, throughout history, will let you know that they had a good relationship with the Romans. We'll tell you that the Pharisees was more middle-class men. The Sadducees was more higher-class men. Now, who was the Essenes?
The who's?
The Essenes, which was another religious sect.
I wouldn't know.
So now this part's important because when you find out about hold on, wait a minute. Hakim, let me see if you know where was the Dead Sea Scrolls found?
Near the Dead Sea, right?
Correct, near the Dead Sea. But what was the cave called where it was found around that region?
No, I wouldn't know.
So now they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Qumran caves. And then what you would see by studying history is what the Essenes lived in the Qumran caves. So when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they said these scrolls was from the Essenes, that the Essenes buried their records in the scroll, their scrolls in the records, and left. So they'll tell you that the Dead Sea Scrolls was written by the Essenes, who was a religious sect, who obviously had the records. So that's the record. They'll claim the Dead Sea Scrolls is from the Essenes. And then when you look up the history, the Essenes lived right by the Qumran caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls was found. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up.
What race of people are they, sir?
The Essenes are the Israelites.
Also, all of these Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes are all Israelites.
The Israelites, just religious sects.
Oh, like the so of today, a Pharisee would be a church member, right?
Basically. Hold on.
And a Sadducee as well, sir.
So, like I say that again. Yeah, them two.
A Sadducee.
So what they so they would just be different religious sects today.
Like Jehovah's Witness or something.
Yeah.
Or Seventh-day Adventist. Okay.
Hold on, let me see if I can delete. So now, they will tell you that the Dead Sea Scrolls was found by the Qumran caves, and where a religious sect of Israelites lived was the Qumran caves. They isolated themselves. Some lived in Jerusalem, and some lived there. Is that on the screen? Okay.
Yeah, can't. The Essenes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Were a Jewish sect that emerged in the 2nd century BCE and established the community at Qumran.
Established the community where?
At Qumran.
So now that's where they established their community. They established their community at Qumran. So now let's see where the Dead Sea Scrolls found. Obviously, Qumran's right by the Dead Sea, kind of gives it away.
Right, yeah.
So now let's see where was the Dead Sea. So now let's see where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. So they link it to the Essenes right in them records. So now here it says the Dead Sea Scrolls are considered by many to be the most significant archaeology find of the 20th century. From 1947 to 56, thousands of scroll fragments were uncovered from the caves near Qumran, located on the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. So where the Essenes was is where they found the scrolls, which lets you know they buried their records in them caves once they realized, all right, these Romans is killing everybody, it's time to flee. They buried their records in clay jars. They'd find their records in clay jars, and then years down the line, they find their records, and their records now is in museums and stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah, so them records, they have them in museums. So, okay, go ahead.
I didn't know that. Do they have it online? So,
but the scrolls,
that would be our records, right?
Yes, our records.
So
what you'll find is, so what Ira said, who are the people that found the scrolls? They say it was some Arab shepherd boy. They say it was some Arab shepherd boy that found the scrolls. And then they dated these scrolls all the way back. So they dated these scrolls all the way back to some they claim it's the oldest ones.
And that's how they got to. Is that Salakia, sir, if I may?
Go ahead.
Is that how they now follow everything that our people are supposed to be doing? Because they've got them records.
You know what? They've always had copies of our records. So they've always had copies of our records. Even the early Christian churches had copies of the records. But these ones here, these scrolls here, they only found these in 1948.
Oh.
So they found the Dead Sea Scroll was found recently. So they only found it in 1948. So
Salakia, so on the Dead Sea Scrolls, if I may,
go ahead.
What's the difference between what's on the Dead? Because you said they've always had our records.
Mm-hmm.
So would the Dead Sea Scrolls have the same records as they have anyway, or is it different? Is there something else on there?
It's the same. Well, it is those different scrolls that they found. So you had the Septuagint, you had the Masoretic text. So there was different scrolls. But once they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they paralleled them and they basically say the same thing, which further proves the Bible ain't been changed. Because if these scrolls was buried for thousands of years, and the scrolls that they did have, and the records that we was reading in the King James version of the Bible, which was written in 1611, which was translated in 1611, they found the scrolls in 1948, and they realized the King James version, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Masoretic text, all say the same thing. Means the Bible ain't been changed, man.
Mm-hmm.
They found these records late, so now they dated these records back to, I believe, maybe the 1st or 2nd century. Because what you'll find is with the scrolls, the oldest ones were parchments written on written on papyrus, wrapped around wooden poles. So that's how they knew how old it was, because it was wrapped around wooden poles. And then obviously later on, the newer ones that they found would be a codex. A codex is like a book. So the ones which were scrolls predates the codex ones. So that's how they could kind of find the timeline.
Right.
And then they dated it back. They dated most of them scrolls back to the 1st or 2nd century, I believe. So Lucky, what precept was he holding?
Acts 23, I believe. Yeah, I think it's verse
and also, so
eight,
Lucky, they got most of our records is in the British Library and the British Museum.
right.
So now what they used to have is they used to have what's his name now? I believe it was Ptolemy II. He got 70 Jews to translate the Bible from Hebrew into Greek, which is called the Septuagint, because they wanted Greek records of it, and they translated it from the Hebrew into Greek. That's where you get the Greek version from. And then he had the Septuagint in the library in Alexandria. So they had a library in Alexandria, which is in Egypt. And then after that, obviously that library over time, they didn't take care of it. After that, the records kept moving. The records is in the British Library somewhere till this day. They got fragments and parchments and of all the records that was with it. And it will let you know all them records that they had back then, the same ones that we have in the Bible today.
Okay.
So they translated it into Greek because people speaking Greek at the time. So Lucky, go ahead.
Right. Okay. Come on.
So Lucky, where was we?
Oh, Salakia. So we was at Acts 23, I believe. I think I'm. All right. Okay. Here. But when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other part Pharisees, he cried out in the council, "Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee."
So now Paul, so what did Paul do? Paul said, "Men and brethren, I'm a Pharisee, man." That way the Pharisees would be like, okay. And then he tried to say, basically the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they didn't like each other. So he said, look, I'm a Pharisee, man. Because at this time, they're ready to kill him. They're both ready to kill him. So he's like, I'm a Pharisee. So Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan, the son of a Pharisee, of the hope.
I'm a son of a Pharisee. Go ahead.
Of the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am called in question. And when he had so said, there arose dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
So now the Pharisees and the Sadducees then began to go at each other. Go ahead.
For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection.
So now Paul mentioned he believes in the resurrection, man. And then this will cause up a division between the two. Why? Because the Pharisees believe in resurrection. The Sadducees don't believe in resurrection, man. The Sadducees they don't believe in resurrection, and the Pharisees do. So if Paul believes in resurrection and the Pharisees do, and the Sadducees don't, the Sadducees is going to have a problem. Go ahead.
Karawan Khan, for the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection.
So now the Sadducees say they believe there's no resurrection, there's no spirits, there's no angels or none of that. The Sadducees just believe when you're dead, you're dead. They believe something similar to what the oppressor believes. The oppressor believes just ruin the earth because when we die, we're dead. That's how the oppressor lives. The oppressor lives by just ruin the earth, dig all holes in the ozone layer, try and break the firmament and all of these things. That's how he lives. Just ruin the whole earth, because when we're dead, we're gone. So just ruin the earth. That's how he lives. Go ahead.
Neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees confessed both. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees part arose
Go ahead.
and strove, saying, We find no evil in this man.
And now they said, we find no evil in this man. Go ahead.
But if a spirit or an
So now
angel
the Pharisees said, we find no evil in this man. Why? Because Paul said, look, I believe in the resurrection, and I believe in spirits and angels. And they was like, well, damn, we believe that too. We find no evil in that man, this man. Go ahead.
But if a spirit or an angel have spoken to him, let us not fight against God.
And now they said, if a spirit or angel spoke to Paul, let us not fight against God. So before, both of them wanted to kill Paul, but Paul had to kind of, break it down in a way where he caused them to go against each other, which kind of gives him some time to get up out of there. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down and to take him by force from among them and to bring him into the castle.
Go ahead.
Quran Khan. And the night following the Lord, Salakia, and the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, Be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome.
So now the Lord said, look, be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so thou must also witness also at Rome, man. And who's he going to speak to in Rome? He ain't going to speak to no Romans. He ain't going to speak to no Romans that are Edomites. He's going to speak to the brothers, which is in Rome, man. The Israelites that was in Rome, because Rome was in power at the time and they was taking people captives, man. Israelites was living all throughout their provinces and wherever they ruled. Wherever they ruled, Israelites was living there. And it was time for what? The message to go to all brothers, man. So them brothers that was dwelling at Rome, the message had to go to Jerusalem. Once it went to Jerusalem, it then went to Rome, or wherever brothers was dwelling. So it went to Jerusalem first, and then it went out to wherever he was dwelling. So they had this first in Jerusalem, then they took it everywhere else they was going. Don't think they went to go speak to Edomites. Edomites, that was the ones that we was getting this good news about, that one day they're not going to be ruling over us, man. I mean, why would we want to be equal with the heathens? Anybody that wants to be equal has never had a taste of power, man. If you imagine this, if you had a taste of power, you would never want to be equal. It's because you've never tasted power in your life, man. You don't know what power tastes like. If you knew what power tasted like, you wouldn't want to be equal with these other nations, man. These other nations know what power tastes like, and that's why they would never be equal with you. Because they know what power tastes like. Only a man that's so low wants to be equal. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan. And when it was day, certain of the Jews band together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul.
And they said they're not going to eat and drink until they had killed Paul, man. They wanted to kill Paul. Imagine they said, we ain't going to eat and we ain't going to drink until we've killed Paul. This is meant to be your Pharisees, man, and your Sadducees. This is meant to be your leaders and the people that's meant to rule the nation, man. They said, we ain't going to eat and we're not going to drink until we've killed Paul. Imagine that. They hated the truth that much that they said, we're not going to eat and drink until we've killed him. They made an oath, man. That's how much they hated him. We ain't going to eat and drink until Paul's dead. That's what they said, man. What verse you at?
13.
Go ahead.
Quran Khan. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy.
And listen, man, there's more than 40 that made this conspiracy. Imagine these Jews are supposed to be keeping the laws of God, and they're conspiring to kill their brother, man. They're conspiring to kill their brother. Why? Because he's speaking the truth, man. 40 of them conspired to kill him, man. None of them had the capacity to say, no, let's not kill him, man. He's our brother. What he's teaching we might not agree with, but hey, leave him to it. They conspired to kill him, man. And that's Christians for you today, man. They listen, you think they don't want to see us dead? They do, man. Christians come out to the camp and they're the most violent in front of the camp, man. They're the most aggressive in front of the camp because they have the same spirit of these Pharisees and Sadducees. Because they're the same people, man. They're the same people. Listen, the Sadducees don't believe in reincarnation. Well, you're back reincarnated as a Christian, man. So lucky. You don't believe in the resurrection. Listen, you Sadducees don't believe in that when you die, you come back. You're back as a Christian, man. It's lucky. Read on.
Quran Khan, verse 14. And they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves under a great curse.
Baraki, Allah said the purple spirit and Khan, that's exactly what it is, man. They have the spirit of the Pharisees and Sadducees. They be doing all these psyops and all these little plans to destroy their brothers, man. In one breath to talk about the law, fringes. In the next breath, they're trying to kill their brothers, man. Sending their brothers to jail. They have the same spirit of these Sadducees and Pharisees, man. Which lets you know, man, them Pharisees and Sadducees is back in the reincarnation in the IUIC. So, okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul.
They said we ain't going to eat until we've killed Paul. They said, you know what? And what happens if you don't eat? You die of starvation, man. They was basically saying, we're willing to die to kill this man. Either we're going to die of starvation, but we're going to kill this man. We ain't going to eat. We ain't going to nourish ourselves until this man's dead. That's how much they hated the truth, man. That they was willing to starve themselves and kill themselves until Paul was dead. That's how much they hated the truth, man. So, okay, go ahead.
Quran Khan, now therefore, ye with the council signify to the chief captain.
Actually, drop that for time's sake. Now get me the book of Luke chapter 20 and verse 1. Now you're going to see how they conspired to kill Christ as well. Also, any questions, just type them in the chat and we'll get to them.
Luke 20 verse 1. And it came to pass that on one of those days, as he taught the people in the temple and preached the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes came upon him with the elders and spake unto him, saying, tell us by what authority doest thou these things?
And it says they came with the elders, meaning what? They're seeing Christ teaching in the temple. And they're saying, by what authority are you teaching what you're teaching, man? Who gave you the authority to come up in the temple and teach what you're teaching? That's why they're saying to him, by what authority? Meaning you in the temple teaching something that's not to be taught. So that's why they're saying to him, by what authority do you do these things? Because they're saying, you ain't had the authority, you ain't got this authority from the chief priests. You ain't got this authority from the elders. Why are you up in the temple teaching this good news? Slaki, go ahead.
And he answered and said unto them, I will also ask.
And Salaki, what you'll find is the chief priest, they believe that they was the only authority. They believe that they should be the only ones teaching and they're the only authority. So they was offended when Christ is teaching these things. Go ahead. And in their mind, Christ wasn't no elder and he wasn't ordained by them. They're saying this man ain't ordained by us to be teaching. Why is he up in the temple breaking down precepts and this gospel? He ain't ordained by us to be teaching nothing. So that's why they said to him, by what authority do you do these things? Go ahead.
And he answered and said unto them, I will also ask you one thing, and answer me.
So Christ asked them a question. He goes, I'm going to ask you one thing, and you answer me. They asked him a question. They asked him by what authority. Now Christ is going to ask them a question. Go ahead.
The baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men?
And he's asking them, the baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men? So now people believed in John's baptism. If they said it was from God, then the people would be like, so why don't you follow God if the baptism was from John? And if they said the baptism was from men, the people probably would have stoned them to death because the people loved John. So Christ asked them a trick question where they couldn't get their way out of it, man. He asked them a question where they was trapped on both ends. And that's what we do in the UPK. We ask you a question and you can't wiggle out of it, man.
God.
We ask you a question and you can't wiggle out of that question, man. Whichever answer you give, the knife's coming down from both ways, man. We put you in a box and you can't get out of that box.
Right.
And Christ done the same thing, man. He asked you a question knowing you can't answer it. And that's what we do to Christians every single day. We ask you a question knowing that which answer you give, we're going to cut you either way, man. Christ did the same thing. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Karawan Khan. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say.
The reason with them niggas turned around, man. They turned around and whispered, hey, don't answer that. Because if we say this, then this is going to happen. The reason within themselves, they turned around and whispered to each other, don't answer that, man. Don't answer that. So, Lucky, go ahead.
And they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, he will say, why then believe you him not? So
even they knew that he had them trapped from both angles, man. They said, listen, if we say we believe in the baptism, he's going to say, so why don't you believe me? Go ahead.
Kanon Khan. But if we say of men, all the people will stone us.
And they said, if we say of men, all the people will stone us. Why? Because the people understood John was a prophet. So they understood the baptism came from God and they followed John. So if these people was to diss John, the people would stone them because they love John. If these people was to say that the baptism came from man, because these people love John and they believed it came from God, they would have stoned them. If they was to say the baptism came from God, everyone's going to say, so why don't you fall in line and follow the orders?
Right.
So they didn't want to answer. So that's why they didn't answer, because they was tied up from both ends. So okay, go ahead.
Khan. For they be persuaded that John was a prophet. And they answered that they could not tell whence it was. And Jesus said unto them, neither tell I you by what authority.
And then now Christ said, you don't want to answer me? Well, I'm not answering you then. You can't answer my question. I'm not going to answer your question. And that's how we do, man. You ask us a question and you don't want to answer ours. Well, I'm not going to answer your question then. Next.
Right.
You ask me a question and you don't answer my one. Next. Christ done the same thing, man. Caught them and didn't answer their question, man. So Lucky, go ahead.
So Lucky, sir. How would we do that in a engaging with Christians, yeah? Like in a scenario, how would we, cut them on that kind of level? If you know what I mean. If you understand.
How would we cut them on that kind of level?
Like cutting them with scriptures or just how Christ done it here. How could I put that into today? Yeah.
So okay, go ahead.
Like, in a conversation with a Christian that says something like, laws are done away with and whatnot, we bring out a precept on that, right? That's how we do it, right?
So you do it like that. So they would say the law's done away with. So you would be like, the law's done away with. They would say yes. You'd be like, does this mean I can rob your house? They're going to say no. And then you're going to say, why not? And they're going to say, because the law says you can't. So most of the time they won't answer it. They know. We do it every time with Christians, they don't answer. Now Christians know. In the law says don't steal, don't kill. If the law's done away with, I can steal and kill. So you say to them, okay, is it am I allowed to kill? They're gonna say no. Then you say, why not? They're gonna say, because in the Bible it says thou shalt not kill. Then you say, but I thought the law was done away with.
Right, okay, like that.
The law's not done away with.
Right. Okay.
Now, if the law's done away with, I can kill, rob, and steal. What's stopping me? The thing that's stopping me from kill, robbing, and stealing is the law. So if the law's done away with, I can do all these things. Right. So you say to them, all right, then why can't I kill? And they're gonna say, because God says you shouldn't kill. And then you say, but you said the law's done away with, so I can kill. Is the law done away with, or is it not done away with? If you say the law's done away with, I'm gonna go and kill. And then they're not gonna answer. They can't answer. So okay, go ahead.
So that's how we cut people, right? Can't
all the time. You cut them with their own words and with logic.
With logic, right.
So if the law's done away with, I can kill anybody that I want. And there's no punishment because the law's done away with.
Right, okay.
And then you want to say, see, the law still stands. We shouldn't kill. We shouldn't eat pork. And then you want to bring out what they do wrong. Because what you'll find is they will tell you the law's only done away with when it comes to laws that they want to break. So when they say you can't kill because it says it in the Bible, what you want to say, it also says in the Bible, don't eat pork. also says in the Bible, don't eat shrimp.
Right.
And then you want to pull your precept that if you broke one, you break all of them, which means keep all of them.
Right.
That's what it means. So then you want to do that with them. And then if
Okay.
they say I can eat pork, then you go back to that means I can kill them. They're going to say, no, you can't kill. You're going to say, then you can't eat pork.
That's right. Okay. That's how
We
you
can keep going
Right.
around in circles if you want.
Yeah, you can't. I
You
hear
can
you.
keep going around in circles. You keep saying you're allowed to eat pork because the law's done away with. I'm allowed to kill because the law's done away with by your
Right.
logic then. And they're going to say, no, you can't kill. And I'm going to say, you can't eat pork. They're going to say, why can't I eat pork? Because the law says you can't eat pork. I can't kill because the law says I can't kill.
Right.
And we can keep going around in circles until they walk away, until they understand what I'm saying to them. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Khan. Then began he to speak to the people this parable.
So, Lucky, what verse you at?
Verse 9.
Yeah, go ahead.
A certain man planted a vineyard and let it forth to husbandmen.
So, a certain man planted a vineyard and he let it out to husbandmen. Go ahead.
Khan, and went into a far country for a long time. And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandman that they should give him of the fruit of the vineyard. Give him.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Actually, read that from the top.
Khan. And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandman.
So now, this is Christ giving the people a parable. Go ahead.
That they should give him of the fruit of the vineyard.
So now I wanted the fruit of the vineyard. Hold on, what verse you at? Verse 9?
10, sir.
Verse 10. All right, go ahead.
But the husbandman beat him and sent him away empty.
So Christ is giving a parable. The husbandman beat him and sent him away. So now the Lord let out the vineyard, meaning he gave the vineyard. Someone's meant to take care of this vineyard. Now the Lord sends men to come back to the vineyard. They beat the men that came back. So like, go ahead.
And again, he sent another servant, and they beat him also. And they beat him also. Go ahead. Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
Salakia, verse 11. And again, he sent another servant, and they beat him also.
And he sent another servant, and they also beat this next servant. Go ahead.
Khan. And entreated him shamefully, and sent him away empty.
Go ahead.
And again, he sent a third, and they wounded him also, and cast him out. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, what shall I do? I will send my beloved son.
So after that, all these men that was beaten, after this he said, I'll send my beloved son. Go ahead.
It may be they will reverence him when they see him.
Reverence him. So Christ is giving a parable. Now let's go back to the back. Actually, read on, and then we'll go back to the top of the parable and break it down.
But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him.
This is the heir. Come and let us kill him, man. Imagine, this is the heir of the vineyard. They said, let us kill him. So, go ahead.
That the inheritance may be ours.
That the inheritance might be ours. They were supposed to take care of this vineyard. Then the heir was meant to come get this vineyard. They said, let's kill him so the inheritance can be ours. Go ahead.
Khan. So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him.
And they killed him also. Go ahead.
What therefore shall the Lord of the vineyard do unto them? He shall come and destroy these husbandmen.
Now let's go back to the top of the parable and break down the parable of what it means. Get me verse 9.
Khan. Then began he to speak unto the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard.
So now a certain man planted a vineyard. Now, in this scripture, what is the vineyard? So it says a certain man planted a vineyard. What's the vineyard? What's the vineyard here in this parable? Anyone online want to give it a shot? Go ahead. What's the vineyard? All right, no sweat. For time's sake, the vineyard is the earth.
Right.
So the vineyard is the earth. Go ahead.
Come on, Khan.
So it says a certain man planted a vineyard. The vineyard is the earth. The certain man here it's talking about is the Lord. Go ahead.
And let it forth to the husbandman, and went.
And let it forth to the husbandman. Now, who's the husbandman? So in this parable, who would the husbandman be? All right, the husbandmen would be the priests. So the husbandmen would be the priests, your Pharisees, your Sadducees. That would be the husbandmen. So they're in charge of this vineyard. Go ahead.
Come on, Khan. And went into a far country for a long time.
And he went into a far country for a long time. So he's left these people to take care of it. The priest is supposed to take care of the people. They're supposed to teach them law, statutes, and commandments. These Pharisees, that was their job, to teach law, statutes, and commandments. While this man's gone into a country for a long time, it was their job to teach and take care of the vineyard. Go ahead.
Come on, Khan. And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandman.
And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandman. Who would the servant be that the Lord sent to the husbandman? Go ahead, Hakian. You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, how was I?
Oh, not at this time.
Okay. I don't know.
All right. So the servants the Lord sent to the husbandman was the prophets,
Right.
your Jeremiahs, your Daniels, and so forth.
Right.
So the Lord sent them servants to the husbandmen. Go ahead.
Come on.
I think it's at verse 10.
10, right. But the husbandmen beat him and sent
What
him
the
away
what?
empty. They beat him and sent him away empty.
And this is how you know this is talking about the prophets, because what did the Jews do to them? They beat them and killed them, man. So the Lord sent a servant was to say, hey, the Lord's ready to do this now. And what did they do? They beat them because they didn't want them to come and change things up. So the husbandmen who the vineyard was let out to, then beat the men who came to retrieve the vineyard. Now this man came from a far country. This man that went into a far country sent his servants to retrieve the vineyard. These husbandmen wouldn't give them the vineyard. They beat the people. So like, you go ahead. Meaning they killed the prophets.
Come on, Khan. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, what shall I do?
And now the Lord of the vineyard is God. Go ahead.
So lucky, I think I missed verse 12, you know.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And again he sent a third. They wounded him also and cast him out.
And that's the multiple prophets that they killed. Because you know they killed a ton of them, right? So that's the multiple prophets that they killed. Go ahead.
Khan, verse 13. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, what shall I do?
Then said the Lord of the vineyard, what shall I do? Go ahead.
I will send my beloved son. It may be that they will reverence him when they see him.
Now, who's the beloved son that God sent?
Yahushai.
There you go. So now they killed all the other brothers. And then he goes, well, I'll send my beloved son. Maybe they'll reverence him because he's my son. So he sent those. So Christ is giving a parable, but go ahead.
So lucky, if I may, sir.
Go ahead.
So they killed they killed the prophets, yeah, us, and then they now about to kill Christ. So lucky.
So Christ is giving a parable of what they done at the time. At this time, they hadn't killed Christ yet, but Christ is talking about they killed all the other prophets. So the Lord's going to send his beloved son. So Christ is giving a parable against the Pharisees, letting you know, look, I'm God's beloved son. The way you killed them, you're supposed to reverence me because I'm the son of God, but you're going to kill me also.
Right.
So Christ is giving a parable about the Pharisees right in front of their face.
Right.
So okay, go ahead.
Khan. But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, this is the heir.
So now the Pharisees, they're meant to see Christ and say, damn, here's the vineyard, man. We've raised this vineyard. We've looked after this vineyard. There you go. Take it. They didn't do that, man. They said, this is the heir of the vineyard. If we kill him, we can have this vineyard forever. If we kill him, we can reign and rule forever and have this vineyard. They didn't want to turn over this vineyard, man. That wasn't theirs in the beginning. It was just their job to take care of it until the Lord sent his men to take it.
And that's
Okay, go
us
ahead.
coming back into the earth, right?
No,
Guys.
that's now the prophets, they was meant to turn it over. They was meant to follow what the prophets had who came from God told them.
But they
So it was
killed
their
them,
job
right?
to nourish the people with the laws, and then the prophets would come and take over and do the rest. When Christ returned, Christ was meant to take over. They didn't allow Christ to take over. They kept the vineyard. So like when we read a bit more down, it will all come full circle.
Oh, okay. Can't.
So go ahead.
Can't. But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours."
And listen, they wanted the inheritance when it wasn't for them. Go ahead.
So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him.
And now Christ is talking about what they're going to do to him. Go ahead.
What therefore shall the Lord of the vineyard do unto them? He shall come and destroy these husbandmen, and shall give the vineyard to others.
So now the Lord said he's going to destroy them. Now jump back to verse 10, Salake.
Can't. At the season, he sent a servant to the husbandmen, that they should give him of the fruit of the vineyard.
So now what's the fruit of the vineyard that the Lord wanted? The Lord wanted the fruit of the vineyard. What's the fruit of the vineyard that the Lord sent his servants to go get? What's the fruit? All the fruit ain't the prophets. What's the fruit?
Is it the laws, statutes, and commandments?
You could say it's the prophets, but it's more than that. The fruit is what?
The laws.
La'ah.
Commandment. Okay.
La'ah, that would mean that the Lord sent these men to get the laws. The Lord sent them to collect the fruit. So what's the fruit?
Someone says his children, sir. Salakia.
Give her a hand. The fruit is the children of Israel, man. So the Lord wanted what? The prophets to come and collect his fruit, man. The children of Israel. The Pharisees and Sadducees refused to give the fruit over. They refused to give the children of Israel over, like the Christian church today, man. And they killed Christ so they could keep the fruit, which was the children of Israel. Jump down to where what was the verse you left at? I believe verse 16 or 17.
16, I believe. Yeah, 16. He shall come and destroy these husbandmen, and shall give the vineyard to others.
And the Lord's going to come and destroy these husbandmen, meaning the children of the kingdom, the Pharisees and Sadducees. He's going to destroy them, man, and give the vineyard to others, man. Those people's destroyed. We taking care of the Lord's vineyard right now, man. We taking care of the Lord's vineyard right now, and when Christ returns, we giving Christ this fruit because we ain't evil bastards like the Pharisees, man. We taking care of this vineyard until Christ returns, and we giving Christ this fruit when he comes, man.
Right.
So, Lucky, go ahead.
He shall come and destroy these husbandmen.
And the Lord is going to destroy these Christians and these pastors and all these religions that keep the Lord's fruit, man. In here, we taking care of the vineyard, man. When you're a keeper of the vineyard, what do? You take care of it. We taking care of this vineyard. And we're going to give Christ his fruit when he returns. We're going to give the Lord his fruit. Lest we be destroyed like these Pharisees was, man. And when it says he shall give the vineyard to others, people read that and think the vineyard is going to be given to Edomites. No, man. The vineyard is given to us because we're going to give Christ his fruit when he returns. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Right. And shall give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, God forbid.
And they said, what?
God forbid.
And they said, God forbid, man, because they heard Christ dropping it heavy in this parable, man. And they said, God forbid, because they didn't want to be destroyed. They didn't want to lose all of those things. So, Lucky, what verse you at?
17.
Yeah, go ahead.
And he beheld them and said, what is this then that is written? The stone which the builders rejected.
The stone that the builders rejected. Go ahead.
The same is become the head of the corner.
And the stone that they rejected is Christ, man. And if you know anything about the cornerstone, that is usually the foundation. They rejected the foundation. Imagine you're building a building and you say, no, I don't want that. I don't want that foundation. The whole thing's going to collapse, man. And the stone that they rejected was Christ, man. The stone that they rejected was Christ. Christ was the foundation of that building, man. Christ was the most important stone in that building. And what did they do? Reject it. Just think of a builder. A builder builds a house, and he has to put those stones in correct. He has to put them stones in correct. If you don't put in them stones correct, what happens? The whole house is gonna collapse. That building is who? The nation of Israel, man. That cornerstone is who? Christ, the foundation of this nation, man. And we didn't have no foundation because that stone was rejected. The scribes and the Pharisees, they rejected Christ, man. They said we ain't accepting this stone. They rejected it. But for time's sake, drop that. Give me Matthew chapter 2 and verse 16. And what's so crazy is when you look at the life of Christ, man, you had the oppressors trying to kill him. You had black people trying to kill him, people who he came to save. Everybody was just trying to kill him left, right, and center, man. That must be stressful. Imagine the people you're trying to save, even they're trying to kill you, which is crazy, man. Yeah, get me Matthew chapter 2, and I'm gonna have to try fly through it. Get me Matthew chapter 2 and verse 16.
Then Salakia, Matthew 2, verse 16. Then Herod, when he heard Salakia, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were born in Bethlehem.
So now, at the time of Christ, because he knew, and he didn't want Christ, he knew the ruler of the Jews is coming. He killed all them children in the land, man. Killed all them kids. Go ahead.
And in all the coasts thereof.
And all the coasts close by. Go ahead.
From 2 years old and under.
Go ahead.
According to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men.
Go ahead.
Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation, and weeping, and great mourning? Rachel weeping for her children,
go ahead,
and would not be comforted, because they are not. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeareth in a dream to Joseph.
So there it says what? It says when Herod was dead, right?
Khan.
It says when Herod was dead. Hold that. No, wait, read on actually.
Khan. An angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel.
So now it says Herod was now there. So there it says Herod was dead, right? Get me Luke chapter 23 and verse 7. Let me see if this is the one.
Khan.
Hold on, let me give me 1 second. Yeah, go ahead. Get me Luke chapter 20. Let me see if this is the one I want. Hold on. Luke chapter
23, verse 7.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just get there with you.
And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me Luke chapter 23 and verse 7.
Khan. Luke 23, verse 7. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, go ahead. He sent him to Herod.
So now, how come it says that Herod was dead in the book of Matthew, but in the book of Luke, it says that Christ was sent to Herod as an adult?
Is it two different times?
So while it is the account of Matthew is when Christ was a child. The account in Luke is when Christ is an adult. So if Herod is meant to be dead when Christ was a child, how is Herod alive in the book of Luke when Christ is an adult? Some lunatic Muslim asked me this. So if Herod is meant to be, if Herod was dead when Christ was a child, how is Herod back alive when Christ is an adult in the book of Luke? Anyone online want to give it a shot?
It's a title. Someone said trooper.
It's a title because there's about 5 or 6 different Herods.
All right.
So that's why it's very important to know. Now the Herod in the book, because Muslims will tell you it's a contradiction. The Herod in the book of Matthew is who? King Herod. Now, this one here is Herod's son in the book of Luke. So this Herod here, his name is Archelaus. So his name is Herod Archelaus. So this is a different one. This one is Herod Archelaus. Well, it's like you read the scripture that you're holding. So always remember there's about 5, 6 different Herods.
Can't.
Obviously, if you want, you know what? One day I need to do a video based on all of them. That way you kind of know who they are, their names. Because you had King Herod, the first one. You had Herod Archelaus. You had Herod the Great. You had Herod Antipas. You had Herod Philip II. You had Herod Philip I. You had Herod Agrippa. You had Herod of Callis, and then you had Agrippa II. So Agrippa II, the one that poured out with, his name was Herod also. The Herod of Callis, his name was Herod also. You also had, what's his name? I believe it was Antipas. So it was Herod Antipas, and it was who beheaded John. So Herod Antipas beheaded John for what's his name now? So you had Herod II. His name was Herod Philip I. So now he had a daughter called Salome, and she was the one that told Antipas, "I want John's head on the plate." So Herod Philip is the father of Salome, who told Herod Antipas to behead John. So there's about 5 or 6 different Herods. Lucky I got the book somewhere at home. One day I go over it so you can find out which Herod was which one ruled at this time.
Yeah.
Which years they ruled.
I've never known that. I've never known that Herod was a title. So
yeah, listen, and that's why you have the Herodian dynasty. So you have the Herodian dynasty because all them Herods was ruling. Herodian comes from Herod. Now, a dynasty means what? A line of rulers. So all these rulers had something in common. They all had the name Herod. So all of them was named Herod this, Herod that. So there's about 5 or 6 of them. And then the last of the Herodian dynasty was who? Agrippa II. Now, Agrippa II is the one who poured out with. Agrippa II was the one who poured out with. And then after Agrippa II died, the Herodian dynasty became extinct because obviously there was no more of them. So that was the end of the Herodian dynasty. But Salaki, one day I'll go over it in depth. But what precept you holding?
Luke 23 verse 7.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction.
Actually, go up a verse.
Luke 23 verse 6. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean.
So now, who's Pilate? Pilate is the man that ruled over Judea. He was the ruler of Judea at the time under Tiberius, under Roman Emperor Tiberius. Go ahead.
And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction.
So he knew that. So he said he knew that. So he said when he knew that it belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, which is this was Herod Archelaus. I believe this one was Herod Archelaus. Go ahead.
He sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time.
So now he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem. Go ahead.
And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad.
Go ahead.
For he was desirous to see him a long season.
He was desiring to see him for a long season. Go ahead.
Because he had heard many things.
It wasn't Archelaus, it was Antipas. It was Herod Antipas at this time. Archelaus was the one in charge when Christ came back to Jerusalem. So after Herod the Great died, he died. And then obviously the angel went to Joseph and said, all right, take the child back to Egypt. the guy ruling over the city at that time was Herod Archelaus. Now, at this time, when Christ is an adult, it was Herod Antipas. So, like, you go ahead, read it again.
Khan. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season.
So now, why did Pilate send Christ to Herod? Obviously, Herod, by chance, happened to be in Jerusalem at that time. Why did Pilate send Christ to Herod? Anyone online want to give it a shot? Why did Pilate send Christ to Herod? Let me give them a minute. Read that verse one more time in the meantime while I see if anyone online wants to give it a shot.
Khan. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself was at Jerusalem at that time.
All right, then. So let me give it to you for time's sake. The reason Pilate sent Christ to Herod is because he knew Christ was from Galilee, and he comes from a Herod's jurisdiction. So now what you'll find is the land of Israel, you had different rulers ruling over different parts. You had different governors over different parts. Pilate was ruling over Judea. Antipas was ruling over Galilee. So because Christ was from Galilee, he sent him to Herod because it was Herod's jurisdiction, meaning it was Herod's part of the city that he ruled over. So he sent Christ to Herod. And according to history, Herod, Antipas, and Pilate didn't even like each other. They wasn't fond of each other. But so lucky, read on.
Khan. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season.
And now Herod, he heard about Christ because Christ was performing all these miracles. He heard about him. Why? Because he was ruler over Galilee. And obviously, he's known amongst the people. Christ is dropping it heavy. So obviously, they know he knows of him. So he was happy to meet him. Go ahead.
Khan. Because he had heard many things of him.
And he heard many things of him. Obviously, Christ's fame was not noised all throughout Israel, all throughout Judea. Now, the Roman emperor like Tiberius and them wouldn't have known about him. Why? Because Tiberius was being a homosexual on the island of Capri. Tiberius was having homosexual relationships with little boys in Capri. And them Roman emperors, they thought they was all the way up there. So they left their governors in charge. So Tiberius wouldn't have heard about Christ because they was crucifying Jews left, right, and center. So they wouldn't have wrote to Tiberius about a crucifixion. Why? Because it was just normal to crucify Jews. So Lucky, go ahead.
And he hoped to have seen some miracles.
After they crucified Christ, that's when Christ's fame got noised abroad and went all over the world. But just think, at the time, Christ's fame was all throughout the land he was in. The Roman emperors didn't really know about him until these Romans started to convert to Christianity in about what? The 6th century, I believe, between the 4th and 6th century. So, Lucky, go ahead.
And he had hoped to have seen some miracles done by him.
And now he's seen Christ and he wants to see miracles done by him because he heard about these miracles. He wants Christ to perform miracles, man. What verse you at?
9, sir.
Go ahead.
Khan. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered him nothing.
And he's asking Christ stuff, man. And Christ ain't answering nothing, man. Christ didn't act like a buffoon for the oppressor. Christ didn't say to the oppressor, hey, look at this miracle. I'll do this if you let me. He didn't do none of that, man. He didn't answer him a word, man. He's got Herod in his face talking nonsense. Christ didn't answer him a word. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Khan. And the chief priests and scribes stood in what's it say?
Vehemently.
What's that mean, other one?
So, Lucky, let me Google it. I'm sure it means, hold on, don't it mean, like they kept accusing him, like, hold on. Let me pull it up. Yeah, in a forceful way. Yeah, that's what it means. So in a forceful way, they was trying to persuade Herod and Pontius Pilate, look, man, is this. So they accused him vehemently in a forceful way. Go ahead.
Khan accused him, and Herod, with his men of war, set him at naught and mocked him.
And now Herod, they mocked him. They put Christ in robes and started mocking him. Him and his men of war surrounded him. They're laughing and mocking him, thinking it's a joke. And guess who's there while they're mocking Christ? His own brothers, man. The Pharisees and Sadducees is begging the Romans to kill this man. Christ came to save these niggas here, and they're begging their oppressor to kill him. They're begging their oppressor to kill him vehemently. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Quran Khan. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught and mocked him and arrayed him with a gorgeous robe and sent him again to Pilate.
So now they sent him back to Pilate now. So after Herod mocked him and his men of war mocked him, laughed at him and done all of these things, they've now sent him back to Pilate now, the ruler over Judea. Because remember, Herod Antipas was ruler over Galilee. So now they've sent him back to the ruler over Judea. It's like your local MPs, the rule over certain cities. This man ruled over the city of Judea. One man ruled over the city of Galilee. Go ahead.
Quran Khan. And the same day, Pilate and Herod made friends together.
So now before they hated each other, this day they made friends together. But according to history, they hated each other. Go ahead.
For before they were at enmity.
See? And this is how you know the Bible's true, because the Bible says they were at enmity. And when you look up the history of their relationship, they hated each other. They was at enmity. Listen, I've read a ton of books about these Augustuses, these Roman emperors. Listen, you don't believe me? Listen, ask my rib. I'll be sitting at home in the dark with my one eye monocle reading these books till 2, 3 in the morning, man. I've been reading these history books till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, man. Highlighting every minute. Listen, you can hear the highlighter from the other rooms the way I'm highlighting all these notes. You can hear the highlighter. I've been up all night losing sleep reading these history books, man.
Most High in Christ.
Well, I know what I'm talking about. So, if I may, I think history is my strong point. Others might think it's not. I think history is my strong point.
That's right.
So I think I specialize in history. I believe it's my strongest point. So, Lucky, go ahead. If I say so myself, others might think this guy's garbage at history. Who knows? I believe I'm quite good at it if I say so myself. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Khan. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and rulers and the people, said unto them, ye have brought this man to me as one that perverteth the people. And behold, I having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man. So
now Pilate said, I ain't found no fault in this man. I found no fault. I've examined him to see what he's done wrong. I don't find no fault. So, Lucky, go ahead. And what verse you at?
I'm still 14.
Yeah, go ahead. Read just 14 and 15, then we can wrap it up.
Khan. Touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him.
And they said they ain't done nothing worthy of death. Even the oppressors knew that Christ didn't do nothing worthy of death. Nothing at all worthy of death. Even the devil himself that wants to kill and destroy everything, he understood Christ done nothing worthy of death. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Verse 16. And I will therefore chastise him and release him.
And the oppressors like, you know what? We'll just chastise him and release him. Obviously, the Jews said, no, kill him, kill him, kill him. They didn't want to chastise him and release him. Obviously, that brings us to the end of the class. Clap it up. We're going to do the announcements and we're out of here. Hold on, let me just get the security announcements to lock it. All right, this is the ISUPK security announcements. We are the ISUPK started at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother or sister comes into the school. They are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will call each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers chapter 18 and verse 21. Malachi chapter 3 and 8 through 10 means 10th in the Hebrew, ma'asherah. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like, the upcoming holy convocations, I believe it's the Feast, the Tabernacles. Remind Akim and Akov to check the bulletin board in the hallway. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boot, shirt, pants, headbands, and scarf. All right, with that, we're going to give one courtesy salute. All right, men of Israel, I Majam Shabbat, I Majam Barak, Yahaba Shem Yerushalayim. Class dismissed. All right, Shalom Israel. We'll see you here tomorrow, 7 p.m. with Captain Parasha. All right, Hakayam Fawada again. I appreciate it.
No,
I appreciate it. All right, then Shalom, Lord in Christ.
Shalom, Lord in Christ. Tawab class, sir. Heavy class.
Most time, Christ, I appreciate it.
Tawab, man. Shalom.